Good evening, everybody. I'm Paul.
I'm Jenny.
And we're going to walk you through one of our fun little paintings tonight called Tropical Getaway. We always like to do these kinds of paintings in the wintertime in January because we're all about thinking it's time to get out and get some sunshine and maybe put our feet in the sand.
That's right. A year ago, we were on a tropical getaway at this time.
We were in Maui. And it's interesting because this painting we're doing tonight is actually kind of I wouldn't say an upgrade, but inspired by another painting that we do at the studio that was inspired by another trip to Hawaii a few years ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I remember I painted that one when we were on the Good Day, Oregon.
Oh, okay. Episode.
Yeah, remember we had only gotten like 3 hours of sleep because we got back from Hawaii the night before and then had to be up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, all that fun stuff. I see we've got nobody online yet, so we're going to go ahead and start teaching.
Where are you? There were just 5 of you. What happened?
Where'd y'all go?
We went live and they ran away.
We're hanging out here waiting for people to join us to paint, and as long as nobody's here, here's somebody.
Hi, person.
Howdy. We're just waiting for more people, but I mean, we're going to get started because we're not going to wait a bunch of time, a couple minutes. But anyway, welcome to the Go Box painting tutorial for Tropical Getaway. If you don't know what the Go Box is, we do 2 classes a month, and we do these nice acrylic paintings. If you're just stumbling across us, looking through what's going on YouTube, and Jenny and I will take turns teaching. This is actually only the second time I've taught for the Go Box. And if you're new to us, click subscribe and click on the little bell to make sure you get notifications when we upload new videos. We've gotten through our busy season at the studio, so we're planning on uploading a lot more videos with some great content. Not all just tutorials like this that you need materials, but just some like helpful how-tos and all kinds of little things that might come in handy to people.
Yep.
So.
And coming up in March, we're going to start switching up the Go Box a little bit, adding in some painting on wood. That'll be in March. We're doing a couple wood paintings in your kit. And then watercolor. So I've been brushing up on watercolor and feel pretty confident in teaching you guys. I've kind of been really working on it hard for about a year. So I'm feeling like I'm ready to teach.
Now, I've never seen somebody who has taken a new medium of art and really run with it the way you have, though. It's like, I think you found your true calling as far as, everybody has that one thing that they're really, really, really good at when it comes to art. And sometimes you don't find it right away, and you're always doing an amazing job with the acrylics, but man, watercolor is like next level for you. So I'm really impressed.
Good deal.
Yeah, I'm not sucking up at all right now. Anyway, so let's talk about this painting real quick. I'm going to switch over to our picture-in-picture mode. There we go. Here's our painting we're working on tonight, and this is a fun painting. I love teaching this type of painting where we've got some waterscapes and some sky. Now, I will say I did not paint this original, and I guarantee that the way my brush works is gonna look different.
Always.
And it's not that I'm intentionally trying to make it look different. In this case, with this type of sky. This type of sky, for me personally, is a little bit of a difficult kind of way of blending it. And it's just the way my hand works. So
you like to lift your hand a lot.
It's not really I like to, it's just the way my hand works.
Okay.
So
I figured you like to.
No, it's just the way it goes.
Are you saying you can't control it?
No, I can't. I mean, I try and it just doesn't mesh well with the way I paint. So, but anyway, it's going to have the same look and feeling, and I think it'll be just as good. I'm just telling you, my brushwork's going to end up being a little different, and it's just because I know how I paint. And that's okay, and that's actually kind of a good thing, because people a lot of times, they really beat themselves up about their painting not looking exactly like what they're trying to replicate. And the fact of the matter is, sometimes you just physically can't. Mm-hmm. It's just, our hands all work different. So.
Can I jump in here with one thing I wanted to mention?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So here where we transition from this peachy color up to the blue, probably a little white laid in over there will make
like we did in the last painting.
Yeah, so we don't get like a brown streak in the sky.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't want that in Hawaii.
No. Not at all. Now, let's go ahead and start off with a little toast. Jenny and I are being really clean this month, and we're just having some nice tea tonight. And
after Drunk-cember.
yeah, we're trying to kind of get back on track, and it's kind of awkward because we kind of like own a wine bar. So anyway, so let's toast to trying something new. Let's toast to the tropics and the wonderful inspiration we get, and the wonderful getaways that we get once in a while, and
even if it's on canvas.
Even if it's on canvas. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.
Yeah. Oh, that's good tea. What kind of tea is that?
That is Jasmine Pearls Peach Haiku.
So Jasmine Pearl is the new company we're carrying at the studio.
Yep.
Cool.
And they're located in North Portland. And they have amazing teas. So many flavors. And you can visit the shop and sample, and I highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
Awesome stuff.
We're tea people too, so it's,
I
like coffee, but I like tea. All right, so I'm going to slide. There we go. That's a little better. Let's talk about the colors we're working with tonight. So let me bring this over here really quick. And I like this painting because it's really kind of based on a primary color scheme. When I say primary color scheme, obviously most people probably know what that is, but not everybody does, and that's okay because things have actually are starting to shift in the idea of what primaries are. But this is old school primary colors. We've got red, which is the bright red that you received in your box. We've got, is this the craft yellow?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got craft yellow. We use a color that's called craft yellow more often than the yellow that goes with some of our other paints, and it's because it's a little bit more opaque. So
yeah.
It's got some more...
little like white gesso type. Like, I don't know what, it's more opaque with the white in it and everything.
Yeah, so it covers a little bit better, and it just has a little bit more pop to it. And there's times and places for the other type of yellow, but one like this
This one's a little limited, like when you're trying to make a green.
Yep, exactly. So then we also have our favorite Bahama blue, which if you'll notice is actually our
Tonight
logo
it's
color.
Hawaiian blue.
It's Hawaiian blue. It's what do we want to call it? Aloha blue. But anyway, that's our logo color. We love that color. It's I think it's one of the most functional colors that we can throw on our palette.
And hard to mix, so that's why out of the bottle is good.
Yeah, but it can do so many different things to other colors. It's amazing. And then we've got this nice dark blue, which is our phthalo blue, spelled P-T-H-A-L-O.
P-H-T-H. P-H-T-H-A-L-O.
Is there a P-H?
I have to type it up all the time, and so...
Oh, okay.
P-H-T-H.
Phthalo.
Exactly.
And then obviously we got white and black. Now, we are going to be using a little bit of this phthalo blue in the sky, and so when we get to that point, be very aware of which one's phthalo blue and which one's black. And I know it seems like it's pretty obvious, but sometimes I've done it myself.
They're both really dark.
You're painting and you look for the dark color, and all of a sudden you grab black, and then and it's on the canvas before you know it. And sometimes that can be a little bit of a challenge to tackle and fix.
Yeah, and then also I always point this out. We're sharing a palette, so I put a lot of extra paint on the palette. You don't need this much for your one single canvas, unless you have someone painting.
But this is the second painting of the month, so you can
use it all if you want.
Use it all. Use whatever you got left over.
I'm gonna do a little shout out on our Go Box Crate page that we're live.
Sweet, that sounds good. The other thing is if you're saving up like other colors, like if you got leftovers from other months and stuff like that, some of those colors can be kind of fun to add in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any great examples, but right now if you've got some orange from last month with we had the snowman and the gnome, and you've got a little bit of that orange left, that might be something nice to add to the sky in this painting.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we don't start by mixing any color. A lot of times when we're doing the sky, we're going to mix color, but the first thing I always do every single time I paint is I'm going to rinse my brush, and we're starting with our biggest brush. I always think of it like a construction project. You bring in the heavy equipment first, and you work your way down to the tiniest little detail tools at the end. So that's the way we paint. We're starting out with the biggest brush. I call it the bulldozer because we're prepping this painting to go. So what we're going to start off with is this painting is kind of really laid out in a way that is simple for beginners, but also has some cool things going on for intermediate and even advanced students. Of course, if you're an advanced student, you can add and do whatever you want. If you're an intermediate student, feel free to do the same. And ignore our dogs. They're wrestling in the other room, and they're making all kinds of noise. But we've kept it pretty simple by keeping the horizon line pretty close to the middle of the canvas. That's nothing wrong with it. I like to do middle of the canvas. A lot of times you'll see people do it a third of the way down or a third of the way up. But kind of in the middle is kind of a nice place because it's easier to understand where it's at. And what we're going to start off doing with this is I'm going to take just a little bit of my yellow paint. We're going to take a deep breath and say, okay, this is it. We're going to start this painting no matter what happens tonight. Tomorrow's still Tuesday and everything will be all right?
Okay.
I love it how she does that. Anyway, we're just going to start real simple and just paint right across. Did you add white to yours?
I did a little bit, which you can do to brighten it a little.
Up in the game already.
It's on the instructions.
I'm not reading the instructions.
Yeah, Paul won't read the instructions, but he was the original designer of the other painting that's very much like
I
this.
have the instructions to make sure I don't get too far off pace. But a lot of times, and we were actually talking about this over the weekend when we were teaching up at Skamania Lodge. We were teaching one of our teachers, a painting that one of our teachers had designed, and Danny said, do you want instructions? I said, it's easier for me to just look at the finished painting and figure out how I would do it. And I think you agreed that's kind of the way it is. Sometimes if there's a tricky part to it, then maybe we might ask, hey, how'd you do that? But anyway, what we're going to start doing is I'm going to start in this corner here, right over here, and we're just going to start kind of whisking up, almost like a little swoop. And you want to use enough paint that you're covering the canvas and you're not seeing through, but not so heavy that you're just creating this big old slick of paint, right? So we've kind of just come up, we've kind of used the width of our brush. Our brush is an inch wide, and we've kind of gone up about 2.5 brush widths on the right-hand side and just kind of stayed to the one on the other. I'm not going to worry about cleaning my brush right now or anything like that, but I'm going to sneeze here in a second. Hold on, bear with me. Okay, fight it off. Okay.
Actually, our daughter told me that if you say mayonnaise, mayonnaise, mayonnaise over, it makes your sneeze go away, and it's totally true.
There you go, health tips from GoBox. All right, so what I'm going to do next is we could, in theory, just, if we really wanted to go vibrant, we could just use this bright red all by itself. But this painting's a little bit more pastel-y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix together enough for Jenny and I, so I'm going to do a little bit more. But we're going to start a little bit of the red and a little bit of yellow. It's about equal parts. You just kind of want to mix this nice little coral color we've got going on right here. And if you see sometimes it looks like I'm looking up at the ceiling, we've got a monitor above our camera, and I'm just checking to make sure everything looks right up there. So it does. Let me mix up a little bit more. You use more paint than I do, I've noticed, when we paint. Not that matters to anybody else, but I've just noticed that when you mix paint, you make a lot more than I do. And it's just way we're all different, and that's fine.
I like mine a little lighter.
We're all lovely human beings with our own ways of going through.
So what are we going to do with this?
So what we're going to do is, a lot of times what people instinctively want to do is try to get this blend going immediately. And what I personally like to do is move up just a smidge above.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is just me being me. Yeah, your color is a little lighter. And while it's still wet, I actually like to wipe the extra paint off onto my towel, and I'm just going to now start brushing right along this little transition between the two colors. And I'm not adding more paint, I'm just using the paint that's already there.
We're forcing them to blend.
Forcing it to blend, yeah. And to me, this is easier than trying to start in the yellow paint, because some colors you can do that with, but this particular combination, because this the orange from the red color is so intense, it has a tendency of really wanting to dominate. So this gives you a little bit of an opportunity to kind of ward that off a bit. Now I feel like mine, I could use a little softer transition, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take a little bit of pure yellow and brush it into our transition just a little better. And it's okay. You're not going to blend it perfect. Nobody does. So there we go. And I like to use nice, big, broad brush strokes very lightly. I don't want to push down real hard because that just pushes the paint. I'm going to rinse my brush too. Feels like it's drying out quick tonight for some reason.
It does. I got a couple of red streaks from my brush on mine, but actually I'm going to go with it because they can be little hazy clouds.
Yeah, and that's something actually I'll show you guys real quick, is if you do end up with a little bit of paint on your brush and you end up with a little streak there, it just kind of ends up looking like a cloud in the distance, so you don't need to worry about it.
One of those thin clouds.
Thin little wispy clouds hanging out on the horizon, and so that won't hurt anything at all. Actually,
that is a happy little accident when that happens.
It is, and I think it actually makes it more interesting to look at.
So yeah, yours is definitely more of a orangey red.
Yeah.
And the original was more pink. But it's probably just the original, I'm sure, had a little of the white.
Probably white instead of the yellow.
Because the yellow and white came together.
Yeah. And if you wanted to soften it up, you could take a little bit of white and just
brush over it.
All right, so now we talked about the transition next into our blues, and blues and orange are not good friends. So blues and orange, they're opposites on the color wheel, and when you mix them together, they kind of neutralize each other, and you kind of get a not pleasant, necessarily brownish tone.
You get sludge.
You do. So what we're going to do really quickly, is I'm going to rinse my brush. I'm going to dry my brush. And now I am going to take a little tiny bit of white and just soften up this edge, this top edge of our orange, using a little bit of this white. And you'll see it gets this nice little pinkish tone, peach.
Haiku peach.
What?
Haiku peach, that's the name of our tea.
It's the peach. All right, so we don't need a lot. You can see, and you actually probably can't see it on the computer very well or on your screen. I've actually kind of just brought it up maybe about a half an inch or so. But what this does is it desaturates the two colors so that they can kind of come together a little bit. And what I'm going to do is we're now going to use that, what we're calling Aloha Blue tonight, normally our Bahama Blue. Just a little bit to start, just a tiny, tiny little bit, because it's really easy to overdo it, and we want to make sure we don't overdo it to start. And I'm just going to brush it in right along this edge, where we're top of our white that we just painted in. And then I'm just going to very lightly kind of whisk back and forth. My brush is just staying in the white. And now I can add a little bit more color if I want to, because it feels like it needs a little bit more. Mostly staying in the white. I don't really want it to bump down into the orange, but if it does a little tiny bit, that's okay. It's a little cloud, it's a little something else going on.
Well, and even the original has that spot where it starts turning slightly sludgy.
Yeah,
where the two colors transition.
Right.
And you know, I've actually been looking for that in the sunsets a lot of times.
It's there.
Yeah. So it's not something that you don't see in nature.
No, it's absolutely there. It's one of those things, but because it is kind of a neutral tone, it kind of, people miss seeing it, because they see the vibrant tones and then they just kind of miss it. So, okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to keep working. Let me see. Okay, I just wanted to check and
mix
see.
these two together.
Well, I'm going to work up a little bit further with this.
Okay.
I want to kind of get it to the point where it's kind of just maybe 2 inches from the top corner here on the left, and maybe about halfway across at the top. And what Jenny said is absolutely spot on. We are going to now mix, and we don't need very much of this. We're just going to mix together about equal part, probably twice as much of the Aloha Blue.
You're making periwinkle.
Yeah, kind of a periwinkle. Periwinkle has
a little more red to it.
Little purplish kind of tint. And this, I'm going to, again, just like we did our other transitions, start right along the edge, kind of brush up until I run out of paint. And a lot of these techniques, when we're blending, really rely on moving quickly because the paint starts to dry really quick. So you want to...
Especially if you have your heater or fireplace on, which I'm sure all you guys do this time.
Yeah, for sure.
Unless you really are in Hawaii.
Right. So then what I'm doing is I'm just taking the brush and I've actually wiped any excess paint off and I'm just using the width of the brush right across that transition like so. And just brushing back and forth. And what happens is the bristles wiggle around and move and they allow a little bit of that aloha blue and a little bit of the periwinkle-ish kind of color to shift from one side of the line to the other side of the line and make all these other wonderful colors that are in between them. And we can start working our way up now using that periwinkle. And actually...
I noticed you use the skinny edge of the brush a lot.
I do, depending on what I'm doing. Just trying to kind of control it. Once I get up to this corner, we are going to want this to look like maybe it's getting just dark enough for some stars to start shining through. So once I've got up to the corner... Once we have, I'm going to add just a little bit, just a tiny little dab of just the pure phthalo. Not a lot, just a little bit, just to darken that color up. And then I'm just going to kind of work it down just a bit. Gonna work it, girl. Do your thing on the canvas. Yeah. I always tell you I'm weirder when I don't have something to drink. We've been married for 23 years. She's got this eye roll down pat.
I did not roll my eyes.
I heard it.
I didn't.
That's okay. She probably didn't.
Internally, maybe.
Absolutely internally. I always know because when I say things like that, I turn and I wait for your physical reaction.
All right.
All right, so the next thing, yeah, I've definitely got a more vibrant sky. And if you ended up with a more vibrant sky, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, it's your painting. So any of these things that you're doing, if you want to tone this down, you can do so by just taking that base color you started with and adding, really, in this case, to desaturate the colors, you need to add white to it because the yellow is going to keep it in that orange tone. I got some, this would make an awesome 80s, BMX t-shirt or something like that. See? Yeah. You know what I'm saying. All right, so we're going to rinse it up again. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and let me just make sure that I'm in the going and say I am. I'm good.
Yeah, we just kind of repeat the edit. See how it's sketched like a beach?
Yeah.
So it goes like that?
Yeah. I just want to make sure that I'm not deviating too far from the instructions so the students don't get confused. All right, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to mimic what we just did, working our way down. Now, I'm just going to say, this is the kind of painting that you could just start in the middle and work your yellow up, work your yellow down.
I taught a kids class today, so I'm so tired.
Jeez.
I just let out a big yawn, sorry.
Wow. Can't take you anywhere.
Go ahead.
You give yourself chamomile and you're dozing off already? Anyway, a lot of times if I'm teaching a sunset painting with water in the foreground, a lot of times what you'll do, and Jenny, I'm sure you've done this also, where you actually do your yellow up from the horizon and do your yellow down from the horizon at the same time, then transition so you're not having to try to match it as much
and deal with the fast dry situation.
So it's a cool way to do it. Now what we're going to do in this case is, because we do have a lot of foreground elements that we're going to be looking at, so we don't necessarily need to worry about the angles matching the same. A lot of times if you're doing water and reflection, you do kind of want to, but in the ocean it's a little bit more of a gradual. So what we're going to start off with is, again, we're going to start with our yellow.
Or yellow and white if you want lighter.
Yeah, if you want a little bit lighter. And actually over here where we're going to put the sun, it probably would be a good idea to come back in, but I'm going to show you.
We put white on it later, so either way.
Yeah, I'll show you in a bit how we do that. But really, I just want to kind of do, again, just a little brush width right below. And we'll define this horizon line later.
Yeah, it kind of will disappear. It actually looks really cool. It'd be a standalone painting when you have the whole background in.
Yeah, it actually, and sometimes people don't think about the fact that something as simple as just a cool gradient can be a really neat thing to frame and put on the wall. It's got to be
just
framed,
ask
though.
Mark Rothko.
Okay. I don't know who Mark Rothko is.
Oh, okay. I'll show you later.
Yeah. All right. She definitely is the one who's put more time into learning about who artists are. I'm just that kind of crazy. I'm just gonna go by the seat of my pants and figure this out. That's just the way
I just remembered a lot of my art history classes in college.
I took those same classes, but
You
I
did?
think I was too busy looking at you.
No, it was when I was going to PCC.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I didn't take those with you at PCC. Okay. So the next thing is we're gonna do the same little transition of color. So again, our red and yellow mixed together. I want to know who's watching the video right now. You guys go over into the comment box and
That
say
sounded
hi.
kind of stalkery.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't at all.
I want to know.
I want to know who I'm looking at. Remember that from that movie Scream? What's your name?
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that.
All right, we're kind of getting off
Getting
track.
creepy.
I don't know. I don't think it's creepy. I think the fact that you're saying it's creepy
Makes it
is what
creepy.
it makes it seem creepy. I think it was totally innocent until you got involved.
Okay, listen. Feel free to introduce yourself if you want to, but you don't have to.
Do it. Just say hi. That's all I'm asking.
Look what I'm doing. Like what's on the instructions.
That doesn't even make sense. If you want to teach the class,
No.
All right, then. Jiminy Christmas.
Well, my reds don't match.
Well, they
We'll just say
wouldn't.
the water distorted it.
Well, it does, because the water, especially the ocean water, has a lot.
Of salt.
Yep. Oh, we just lost our picture-in-picture, so we'll turn that off. There we go. Oh, now you get to look at my phone. Here, I'll move it. You can't see it. Okay, cool. All right. It really doesn't matter if you do that angle like the instructions say or not, because when we start putting these rocks in and things like that, you're not going to see that stuff anyway.
And like Paul said, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, actually.
That's why I need you here. So your Hawaiian Horizons painting is all like phthalo and Bahama blue.
It is.
And black and golden white.
Mm-hmm. Because I just worked with the palette that you were using that day. You're dropping stuff. What'd you put in your tea tonight anyway?
A sugar cube.
All right, so the next thing we're going to do is, again, and actually, because we're getting into the lower foreground where you might be seeing sand and stuff through the water, you might be getting some kind of brownish purpley tones. So adding this little band of white is not as necessary.
Because there is sand, that's right.
Exactly. So I'm actually going to skip that step, because what we're going to find out is we're actually going to end up with kind of a purpley kind of sea color. Actually, these two colors mixed together are a combination I like to use a lot when we're painting the ocean and we want to get some nice kind of warm sea tones. What is going on?
Sounds like the dog is tearing up something.
And since this is water, the colors tend to mix together more. I mean, obviously the water itself doesn't have the colors, but the way it reflects the colors, they tend to mix a little bit more. So doing it the way we did with the sky, where we were mixing the colors on the palette and then bringing it to the canvas and trying to blend it, we don't have to be quite as meticulous with that at this point. because we really truly can just bring our fresh dark blue, phthalo blue, right in here now. And just brush that into our Aloha blue. Now I want to go to Hawaii.
Lava flows.
Yeah, that's what we should have done tonight.
Yeah.
Well, Mai Tais. I like Mai Tais better.
It's kind of cool when you go to Hawaii. It's like you can buy a lava flow for $16 at the hotel. Or you can get a $5 Mai Tai.
Or a $2 beer.
No, they're never $2.
They are at the gift shop.
Oh, really?
That's what Ryan and I figured out.
What kind of beer?
Same one that they have on tap for $7 at the bar. Yeah. Anyway. Actually, you know, I just kind of brushed a little bit of this Aloha up over, and it actually looks kind of cool. Hi, buddy. I got a dog visiting, so I'm giving him a little pet. A little pity pat. What are you guys doing? Alright. I got a beard hair.
I think it's stuck on under the paint.
Well, it's a brush hair.
I have a fingernail.
Nope. It's done.
I don't think that... No, I got it. I think I got it off. Yeah, there's no texture. It just left the funny mark.
I wonder how many of the bristles that they say that, like, Monet and stuff would leave on their canvases. I wonder how many of those were actually just beard hairs.
Probably a lot. And then they recently found... Well, I don't know if it's recent. I just remember they recently talked about how one of Van Gogh's painting has a grasshopper embedded in the paint.
I wonder if they could then, like, take one of those beard hairs, remove it from the oil paint, and then clone Monet.
Awesome.
Let's do it. Let's start a petition. GoFundMe. We're gonna clone Claude Monet and bring him back. Now,
we will raise that kid.
The hard thing is somebody's gonna have to buy a Monet painting to withdraw said beard hair from. Now, it could get really awkward because if it is a hair bristle, it might end up just being an ox. Never know. Oh, the wonderful times we live in that we can laugh about cloning Claude Monet into an ox.
And how weird it is that it's actually probably not that far off.
It's doable. We can make this happen, I'm pretty sure.
Just ask Elon Musk.
He'll figure it out. And not only that, he'll do it in outer space.
All right. I think we're...
And true to form, just like when I teach in the studio, my painting is much more vibrant in color than the original ever is.
Even, it's like you put an Instagram filter on.
I did. I don't remember why I do that. No, it's not intentional. It's just... wasn't intentional. Alright, so I am going to look and see what our next steps are. Okay. Yeah, we're pretty cool right now.
This is an easy painting.
It really is. That's why she let me teach it.
No. The blending is... Well, I would say it's a lot easier compared to last week's.
Yeah,
which
for sure.
Last week's wasn't horrible at all. It just had a lot of steps. And I think this is one that, you know, not a huge amount of steps. And then you've got a nice beach scene.
So what I would like to do, and this is kind of... I feel like it's a little bit kind of glossed over in the instructions, is our sun.
Okay. Go for it.
So what I would like to do with the sun is typically if you've got this kind of colors going on in a sunset, and I keep looking over at you, but they can't see that I'm looking at you because the picture's off right now. But typically the sun's going to be in the lightest part of the sky because it's not necessarily going to overlap into the orange.
Yeah.
But we can pretend those are kind of clouds and things like that, so it's not that big of a deal.
I see what you're talking about.
Yeah. So what I would like to do is I'm going to do this with my fingertip. I'm going to take a little bit of white, just like that, on my fingertip. I'm going to come in about a third of the way from the edge of my canvas or so. So about 3 inches. The canvas is 14 inches wide, so a third is going to be actually about 4 inches. A little over 4 inches. And I'm just going to really quickly put a little dot like so. And I'm just going to kind of swirl it out and maybe smudge it a little bit side to side as well. I'm also going to do that with a little tiny bit of yellow over that white. So what that's going to do is it's going to give us a little bit of a halo glow. Just creating a light spot. Then I can come back right in the middle of that. Our dog's trying to get something under the couch behind us, and he's a nuisance sometimes, but I love him.
He's a nuisance oftentimes. But he's only 4. And he's a Shiba Inu.
I think he just turned 5.
Oh, well, no, his birthday hasn't come up yet.
I thought it was in January.
We're still in January.
Well, he's turning 5 this month.
Yeah, it's later in the month. Hayden knows. I think it's like the 22nd.
That's like tomorrow. It's day after tomorrow. Anyway, so we're just creating this. Sorry, we're getting derailed. Sometimes we get into our little art studio here and we just just talk. Anyway, so I'm just creating this nice little circle. And keep in mind, this is something I like to tell people, remind people, is when you go down to the beach and you see the sun setting, you're not supposed to look directly at the sun. Don't, just a little disclaimer from GoBox Art Crate. Go to the beach, watch the sunset, don't look directly at the sun, it will hurt your eyes. But when you do look at that, it's not perfectly round. Because when the closer it gets to the horizon, the more atmosphere you're looking through, and it tends to distort it, especially in tropical climates where you've got warmer air, will distort it. So if it's not perfectly round, that's okay, because people are used to not seeing perfectly round suns.
And that's kind of why you get like those big like harvest moons that look so enormous on the horizon.
Yeah, it's exactly. It does 2 things. It magnifies and distorts. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So it looks like our next step we're going to do is we're going to start creating these land masses. And this is actually a lot of fun to do. But it can sometimes be a little bit intimidating to people because we've just painted, like Jenny was saying earlier, this would actually be a fun little
standalone painting?
Yeah. It would be. Well, just frame it. Put it on the wall. Good to go. Good to G-O-G-H go. And it would be cool. Just like this. But
we're going to take it to the next level.
Yes. But the thing is now we're going to paint with just pure black. I think.
Yep.
Is that what the instructions say?
Pretty sure.
Yep. So the scary thing about painting pure black is it really does cover everything completely. It's the only color that we ever use. Excuse me, now I got the hiccups.
Great.
It's the only color we use on a regular basis that it has that finality to it, where it's like it's on there, it's on. Yeah, and white's supposed to cover really well. It doesn't. It takes a couple coats. Black's the only color I can think of that you can just put on top of any other color, and it's just like, it's done. So, with all that said, I hope you're not terrified.
You can paint over it.
You can. It's just it takes more effort.
You can gesso over your entire canvas and start again if you have to.
Yep, but yeah. But
I've done it before.
Yeah, but we're not going to do that because we're going to get this right, because we're going to take a deep breath. We're going to have confidence in ourselves that this is the right thing to do, and we can do it properly.
Go for it.
Yes, you can do it. I believe in you. I believe in all of you out there. All
2 of you.
All 2 of you who are currently watching while we're live. We forgot to remind everybody the video was tonight, so...
Yeah, I posted on Facebook just a little late. It's just this... We taught up at Skamania Lodge this weekend and then had an event today, and it just all blended together into one giant, long, extended weekend.
Yeah. I'm still trying to catch up on it.
Yep.
All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to work on our horizon line. And, let me bring this out here so you can see. We're going to work on this little finger of land right here. And at first, to me, it looks...
like a slice of pizza.
It does. Now I'm hungry, thanks. Do we have any pizza? We do. We do have some little bit left.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, cool. But what I'm going to start to do is this is going to be our first point that we're going to really kind of establish where that transition from the sky to the water is, and that's where this end point right there is. And one of the things I think can be a little bit challenging when people are really painting this type of a finger of land the first time is making it look like it is actually, what's he doing? Actually land and not...
Hachi.
And not just something that was cut and pasted on. And so we're going to work on how to do that. What I'm going to start doing is I'm just going to get black paint on my brush. We're still using our biggest brush. And I'm going to pick a spot. Like we've got this band of yellow that kind of comes through. And I think I want mine to be a little bit below where my sun is. It really doesn't matter if it is or not. You know, it's just as long, it's kind of nice if it is. But I want to kind of come across about 5 inches from the left side of the canvas. My real precise measuring technique of, walk on, dude. Woo! Alright. And I'm basically going to start by painting a horizontal line. Now our instructions kind of start by painting the wedge, but I like to just in my mind establish this horizon line where it's going. And to me, that makes it a little easier to create the upper part of this little spit of land, I think is what they would actually call that, right? Something like that.
That doesn't sound nice at all.
Well,
let's take our boat out to the spit of land.
Remember when we went up to Whidbey Island, we stayed it was Fox Spit Road.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Or that was a road
now
near
I
us.
know why. I just always wondered why it was called that.
That little sandbar down in the water was the Fox Spit. Yep. Anyway, so next what we're going to do is, now this is something that I think people get a little carried away with, the undulation. And so
Dr. Seuss Hills?
Yeah, and so what I like to do, and the other thing is there's 2 things people do. They have a tendency of really drawing it really smooth, which then looks...
That's what I do sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a natural instinct to do. But what I like to do is as I move my brush up, I kind of just let it wiggle. So if you got shaky hands, this is your technique right here.
Actually, if you have shaky hands, there's a lot of paintings that you have the advantage. Because I think that over smooth paintings don't necessarily have the same appeal.
Yeah, and you can see, like on mine right now, before I fill it in, I've got a lot of roughness on this top edge here. And up close, it kind of, if you're like a real perfectionist kind of person, up close it's really going to bother the heck out of you. But when you step back, and you guys kind of have that stepped back kind of view on the screen, when you step back, it actually, even though it's a little bit rough up close, it actually has a nice look because it's not quite so chiseled seeming. And so when you're looking at something that's a little further away, it's like you don't want it to look chiseled. Right? So now, what I'm going to do next is we're going to bring this bit of land down from the horizon as well. Now the tricky part of this is 2 different planes of the same object. And what I mean by plane is we've got the top edge, which is its own plane, and then the bottom edge, which is actually where the water and this bit of land connect to each other. So they're not going to be perfectly parallel with each other. In fact, they're not even going to remotely be the same. So what we're going to do, and this is how I like to do this, is kind of pre-build in some of this interaction between the water and the bit of land. And what I do is I keep my brush moving side to side like this. And then, so my hand's moving side to side, but then I start moving my wrist away. So what we end up getting, let me get a little bit more paint on my brush. Is all of these nice little horizontal interactions where the water and the land mass meet. Now, you don't necessarily see that in the picture of the original, but it's there.
Yeah, the water kind of cuts right in there.
Mm-hmm.
And part of this is shadow, right? On the water?
You're not gonna like right here. You might get a little bit of reflection. Not so much shadow because our light source is over here. Mm-hmm. You're gonna get a little bit, but it's very minimal on this particular one. And you're gonna get a little bit of reflection. But this will kind of play into all of that. And I'm just roughly gonna fill this in. And when I say roughly, I'm not trying to necessarily make it solid Mars black. Is that what color black we use?
Yeah.
I like to remind people too that when you go to Hawaii and a lot of these bits of land that are sticking out into the water, they're actually lava rock.
Yes.
And if you've ever walked on lava rock, it is not smooth at all. It's like not the kind of thing you want to slip and slide down into. Oh, this is going to be great. Let's be like the river otters at Oregon and slide down the river. No, you don't want to do that on the lava rock. So if you've got some roughness to it, that's perfect.
Then it's accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to show you guys a couple little tricks when we get back to this.
After it dries a bit.
After it dries a bit, because I think there's a couple little, you kind of gave me free rein because you said this is kind of my original painting. I'm going to show you.
Great.
Yeah, not too much. I'm going to show you like basically how to finish the painting as it was displayed, and then I'm also going to show you just a couple little tiny things you can do, super easy, that kind of bring this up just a little notch. And I'm not talking crazy. I'm talking like really just like a brush stroke here or a brush stroke there, and you'll see what I mean. All right, so the next one we're going to do is we're just going to leave this for right now because we're going to do that shadow in a bit. I want this to dry first. Okay. So we're going to do this other rock mass here. Now the same thing is going to hold true with this, in that I like to kind of we're going to start just maybe about halfway between our horizon line and the bottom of the canvas. And I'm going to do the same thing. Geez, somebody's being grumpy. Boy, I'm really hungry, Jane. Did you hear my stomach growling? That's our boy Hachi. He's a rescue dog, and sometimes he doesn't like being pestered when he's not expecting it.
Pestered? I was just petting him.
Well, okay, yeah.
But
true.
he's involved with sniffing something out. So.
Oh yeah, something we stuffed under the desk.
All right.
Anyway, so we're gonna do that same horizontal, sketchy kind of technique, but a little bit bolder and not quite as jiggly. So we kind of got a lot of little wiggles going on here. This time we're gonna kind of do like a couple of big strokes. So I'm gonna start just left of my sun, and about halfway between this point and the bottom of the canvas, so right about here. And I'm going to start by going, here's a jog, here's a big one, just like so. And what this is it's where different textures of the rock come down and the water interacts with those textures. It's how we keep it looking more organic and not so just like I said earlier, like here's a piece of paper we cut out and stuck on here. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now what we're going to do next is we're going to start building this rock up. And we want this to go a little taller than our other one. And this is really, to me, the structure of this. You designed this painting, right, Jenny?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, technically, you did.
Yeah, but you did this version of it. Okay, so this to me, this...
That depends. What are you going to say about it?
Nothing. This to me, whoever designed it, which was Jenny, the way she did it really very much screams to me that it is a rocky outcrop.
Okay.
And so...
It is.
It absolutely is. And what I like to do when I'm doing a rocky outcrop is I like to think of, rather than drawing the shape like we did on the other where we're not quite seeing as much detail, I like to think of, I'm going to start placing rocky shapes to build my outline. And what
They're kind of stair-steppy on the original.
Yeah, exactly. But this is how we're going to do that. So I'm going to start, this point just kind of here, but rather than going my brush like this, I like to kind of just take it and use vertical brush strokes kind of choppy. They don't all have to be vertical. There can be a little bit of variation.
There should be a little variation, or else you do end up with stairs.
Yeah. And so it's really a very kind of sloppy, choppy.
But you should have an area where a palm tree could grow out.
Yep, so we got to put this nice flat area up kind of at the top. And that's what we're shooting for. We're going to give ourselves a couple of inches for that. And it can kind of, they kind of want to, they'll grow wherever there's a little spot to grow pretty much.
It's amazing this small amount of sand they can grow in.
Now, when I start filling this in, I know instinctively it's like, especially when we're first learning how to paint, it's like I'm holding a paintbrush. I need to do this. Like I'm painting, like, you know, it's very soothing to paint that way. But since we're painting rocks, I like to keep my brush strokes
Unsoothing?
Yes. I like to continue to use this kind of choppy, uneven, mostly vertical brush stroke. And the reason I like to do that is it does create a little bit of texture. Even though our paint is kind of thin paint compared to some other types of paints or even other heavier bodied acrylics, it does create some texture from the brushwork. And that to me just helps encourage the idea that it's lava. Stone.
Liquid hot magma.
$1 million. You can buy this painting for $1 million. Alright. So you can see, and I've kind of got that glare coming from this light here, so maybe let me see what happens.
Yeah, it looks fine on the, I mean, yeah, it's got glare, but you can tell what it is.
Yeah. Alright, maybe we need to invest in a better monitor. Maybe not. Maybe we just live with it.
It's old.
It's old. It's actually a TV.
Yep.
Alright. So that's all looking good right now. We do want to put
Yours
in...
looks like the cover of the Houses of the Holy album.
Does not.
That's the one with all the steps.
Hammer of the Gods.
If you guys want us to do any paintings inspired by your favorite music song, let us know.
Let us know.
I think that would actually be fun to do a series.
We are big time inspired by music.
We actually met in music class, so that's our... You might see in the back... Well, I don't have the cameras on. We have instruments in the background, too, so... We wanted to kind of represent all of who we are. With Bob Ross and Prince in the background. Awesome.
Bob Ross, Prince, and guitars.
Yeah. And
Okay.
Van Gogh. Okay. So...
Don't get off topic.
No, I do like to get off topic. What we're going to do is we're going to start working on these trees because it would be really easy to... we do need to come in and add some kind of shimmer in our water, but we want to make sure that all this black paint that we just painted on is completely dry before we do that because we're going to be bringing in just some pure white.
Or you'll get gray shimmer.
And actually, let's before we do the trees, let's actually... be smart here.
Do stars?
No. Go ahead and do our little bit of reflection into the water. Because it's okay if we pick up a little bit of that black paint then, but it's not so good. And we want to have that there and dry before we do the white as well. So I'm actually going to switch brushes.
Number 8?
Yeah, and anytime you switch brushes, you always got to take care of your tools. Always got to take care of your brushes. So... rinse them, wipe them clean. I like to set them not in the jar. Like we in the studio we leave them in the jar, but at home I don't like to leave them sitting in the jar too much because it does want to kind of bend the bristles. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our number 8 brush, or if you're using your own brushes, anything that's kind of in this like quarter to 3/16 or quarter to 3. I guess it's just quarter. 3/16 to a quarter.
Small
brush. Flat works
Not
good.
smallest.
You could do this with a round brush, like a number 6 round or a number 8 round would work really well for this technique. We tend to use these flat brushes. But we're going to mix together a couple of colors. We want this to be a little bit washed out too. So we're going to use a little bit of water from our jar. I assume that's what you did. That's what it looks like. Well, that's what we're doing tonight.
Actually, I designed this painting like back in June, so...
How dare you forget. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of water from my jar, and you can see it's dirty, and that's okay. And I'm going to take a little tiny dab of my phthalo blue.
Yeah.
And you can see when I mix this, it's moving around. It kind of pools and stuff like that. I'm going to take a tiniest little dab of black as well. Now the reason I do the phthalo blue in there, I feel like that's a little too dark still, so I'm going to take a little bit of Bahama in there too.
You could even put a little red in it.
You could, absolutely. I mean, you could do, like, kind of do what I like to call everybody in the pool. But we really want it to be this kind of thickness where if you're using one of the palettes that we use at the studios, which is kind of like wax paper, is kind of what it reminds me of. When you take your brush and run it through, the paint will pretty quickly move. Separate back out.
So the instructions say black and water, and that works just as well, but Paul's just giving you a little extra way to change it a bit.
Yeah, you know how I am. I'm not a big fan of just black.
You're not a big fan of following the rules.
It's true. That's why I'm an artist. All right. But really you want it to be, you can see actually as Jenny and I have both dipped our brush in here, it's really
watery.
Yeah, it's like milk.
Watercolor.
Yeah. And we're just very lightly going to smudge some of this in.
So it's like this rock is casting a small shadow.
Yeah, and you can barely see it on well, I don't know if you can on the monitor up above. It's hard to see, but I think it's more obvious in the regular broadcast. The regular stream, that's what I mean to say.
You could do it this way too, where you're pulling straight down.
Yep, you can do it that way. What Jenny uses, you can just kind of take your brush and kind of come straight down. You
kind of have to pick one or the other though, because if you try and do both, it messes it up.
It can, for sure. I personally like to do horizontal, but if you
it's watery, yeah.
If you want to do vertical, that's fine too. And you could try both. Maybe do one rock one way and the other one the other way. It doesn't matter. And I can see in the, how does it look? Yeah, it looks okay on that.
Mm-hmm.
On that
see it.
computer. Okay. It just doesn't show up at all on our...
That's really washed out. You can't look at that TV anymore, Paul.
I know. I need to stop. Don't really need to. I mean, I've got it right there.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
Anyway, so it doesn't need to be really dark. We don't want it necessarily to be super dark.
But if you made it super dark, it's not wrong.
It's not, no. In fact, I'm actually brushing up onto my rocks just a little bit, too. Yeah, just like so. Yeah, that looks good. Because we're going to do water and waves and stuff over the top of this. Mm-hmm. So just being tinted a little darker is really all we want to do. Now, this closer one, we're going to have a much more distinctive kind of, it's going to be much bolder, not bolder, but much larger reflection where we're going to see a lot more. It's going to reflect more towards the bottom of the canvas.
That's where all the starfish are hiding.
Yeah, because it's closer to us and it's taller from a perspective wise. So this one I'm going to be a little bit maybe more meticulous about kind of mimicking the shapes that are above. And when I say mimicking the shapes that are above, I'm like looking, okay, here I've got a little jog that comes up here, so I want to jog down. It's just doing the opposite. And it doesn't have to be real precise. It just kind of has to be a suggestion. We can get into talking about eye angles and reflective angles and all sorts of stuff like that. But nobody wants to watch Mr. Wizard.
Yeah.
You know, unless you want to watch Mr. Wizard, but
you could save that for one of the art of seeing.
Yeah, the art of seeing. I need to start getting those posted more. Yeah. I think, honestly, a lot of times when people are first learning how to paint, when they look at something like this, where we're reflecting into the water, in order for water to reflect, it needs to be a smooth surface. So the smoother the surface, the more it's going to reflect the water to your eye. Reflect an object to your eye. Now, the ocean, a busy river, a big river with a lot of wind, like the Columbia River, because there's a lot of turbulence to the water, it tends to not mirror quite as precisely. And so the colors will be a lot more muted, less obvious. There'll be a subtle suggestion rather than a big bold reflection. Versus going up to like Trillium Lake first thing in the morning. If you're not from Oregon, Trillium Lake is, if you've ever seen a photo of Mount Hood reflected in a lake, it was probably taken at Trillium Lake.
Or Lost Lake.
Yeah, or Lost Lake's another one. But if you go to one of those places, first thing in the morning before the wind picks up and the water's just like glass, and you'll like,
see
it's just like a mirror.
Reflection.
Yeah. Versus like we were up the Columbia River Gorge on Saturday, and it's windy always pretty much, and you look out across the river and you really don't see a reflection at all. You might see a little.
You just see tones.
Some tones, and they're really muted. Almost steely in color.
Oh yeah, the whole river looks gray.
Yeah, a sunny day, just the whole river kind of looks like steel
Greenish.
blue with some green. Yeah, it just kind of reflects everything at once. I'll do an artist seeing on why that happens.
Okay, that sounds good. I like that.
I'm that
Mr.
dorky science artist thing, which just doesn't make sense. I'm into art and science, yeah. I can paint a picture and...
Talk all day about it.
Yeah. And calculate the area of a hypotenuse. No, that's not even make sense. Now I'm just making stuff up. Right now there's a mathematician freaking out.
No, they're not watching our video.
They might be. They gotta unwind too. You know, that's something that actually we've been talking about a lot, and that is painting really is or any form of creativity. I mean, it could be painting, it could be music, it can be drawing, it can be
knitting,
yard work. I don't mean like raking leaves, but I mean actually like having a garden. All of those things are things that really just nurture our soul and heal those, scars of stress that we have on a daily basis from the work week or just life in general. And this is one of the best ways you can possibly heal that without a lot of effort.
And it's a really cheap way to vacation to Hawaii.
That too. This is your world. You can make it whatever you want. Okay, Bob. All right, so you can see I've kind of got that shadow in there, and I like how that looks. It's really kind of, I like that. Yours looks really good. Yours is a bolder shadow. Let me grab your canvas real quick. I'm going to show them. Because I saw you went in and put a little bit more black in yours, and you can see hers is just a little bit more defined shadow on this right-hand side in particular. So, how are we looking on time, Jenny? We're an hour in. 8:33. Yeah, we're only an hour in. This painting really flies by quick.
Yep.
And I feel like we've even wasted a lot of time. Well, I don't want to say wasting time because we're spending quality time together, bonding through art, and that's a wonderful thing.
So the instructions have us doing palm trees next, but you could do stars and then palm trees. Mm-hmm. Either way, I don't think it really matters. So whatever direction you want to go.
The one thing that would be nice about doing the stars next, and this is where one of the things that I would normally say, yeah, we want to do the stars next, because when we paint the palm trees next and then potentially do the stars afterwards, people have a tendency of going around the trees a little bit too much. And if we just do the stars now and don't worry about where the palm trees are going to be, and then when we paint the palm trees, just ignore where the stars are, we get much more of an organic, real feeling.
Let's do it.
So, if you haven't painted with us before, and you haven't done stars, stars are one of the easiest things to ever paint. We use our smallest brush. We use this side of the brush, the non-bristle side. Now you could use the bristle side if you're really careful. But I like the way that this works. It gives a little bit more of a uniform shape. But I'm just going to start by dipping my brush in a little... Let me show them how I do this. This is actually...
Poke the handle in the white.
Yeah. Poke the handle in the white, and then just kind of tap it a couple times in a spot. And what that does is when you dip it in the white, it kind of gives you a dollop of paint. And
that'll give you a supernova on your canvas.
Yeah. But when you just tap it, it kind of takes that little tuft off. And look, there's a demon skull.
What?
Right there. There's his eyes and his nose, his mouth. I see faces and paint.
Pareidolia.
Yeah. Alright, so I'm just going to do this. And what I'll do is I will just basically keep doing stars until I run out of paint. And what I like to do, because it's really easy to get into this habit of just kind of doing like a grid pattern. First step to preventing that is don't think about where you're putting it. You know, don't, because a lot of times people go dot, 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 and then they get into the rhythm and they're all evenly spaced.
Oh, and the stars are just primarily in the blue areas.
Yeah, just the darker blue. You can kind of come down into your lighter blue a little bit, but you don't want to go too far because then you're really... And actually, realistically, you're not going to see a lot of stars at this point. But what I like to do to kind of break up that grid-like pattern is to kind of take one spot and do like a little cluster of stars and maybe a couple here. And then just kind of do some Lone Rangers. Hi-ho, silver. Alright. I used to love that show when I was a kid. Not that I'm, like, I was watching the syndicated reruns, you know. It wasn't like I was watching it new.
I don't even remember. What show was that?
The Lone Ranger?
Oh, The Lone Ranger. Oh, yeah. Hi-ho, silver and away, yeah. Yeah, I did watch that a little bit.
Yeah. Alright. So you can really see, like, I've got a couple real distinctive stars and then lots of little ones, and I like to do that. Let me just make sure I'm going in there.
Palm trees.
Sweet, I like this instructions. Add palm tree silhouettes. So that gives me a lot of freedom to show you how I teach palm trees.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of room to type giant paragraphs.
Yeah, so palm trees...
That's why the videos are important.
I think palm trees might be the easiest kind of tree to paint. I love teaching palm trees because of that. The trees in the background are really pretty simple. The tree in the foreground, I think, can actually be considered even simpler because it's a little bigger.
And they really can grow really close down where there's not a lot of sand for them to take root. They don't really have giant root systems.
No, but they don't blow over easy either.
Crazy
They bend. Trees, yeah. Oh, well, I think I don't know. We can get into the taxology of that.
That's
sometime.
Okay. That's for your science one.
Yeah, there we go.
Your science of painting.
Now, one of the things I like to point out is what you can do in this, and this is like one of those little detail things I was talking about earlier. If you really want this to feel like it's really jutting out into the ocean, you can make your trees out at the end much shorter. These are all...
Show us, Paul.
They're
all
kind of...
do yours that way?
Yeah, I'm going to do mine that way. These are all kind of... This first one here is a little bit taller, but these other three are all really kind of close to the same. And it's not like... You don't have to do it that way. I like the way the original is, too, but this is something that just adds a little extra perspective, and I think that's a nice thing. So... I'm going to take my number 8 brush. I assume this is what you used when you did it, right? You don't remember. It was 6 months ago.
I probably used the 4 for the trunks.
Okay. I'm going to use the 8. And I'm going to start with this.
For the littler trees.
I'm going to start with this one that's here.
Okay.
And basically, the nice thing about palm trees is they always kind of have a subtle little bend. And they get a little fatter. So this one I maybe made a little bigger than the original, and that's okay. Because I want you guys to see what's going on this one. Now, one of the things that I've seen in the studio when we paint palm trees is it's really important to understand the way the palm fronds grow from the top of the tree. And they all pretty much cluster in from the center here. And I've seen a lot of people where when we start painting these, they'll start working their way down their trunk like we would see with a fir tree. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, what is going on? Is it a monkey tree? You guys know what a monkey tree looks like, yeah. And it's a legitimate tree.
It's a hybrid.
you want to start every frond from this top of this tree. And I'm sure in real life it's the top, not all exactly from the exact top, but when we paint it, it looks better if we kind of do it this way.
They're kind of are like fireworks.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now
Does
the other
that
thing
make
is,
sense?
the other thing is they tend to, the fronds, because of the length and weight, tend to droop down. So what gets a little bit tricky is sometimes the ones that are kind of going away have a tendency to look like they're going a little bit more straight up, and that's okay because they do kind of blow in the wind and things like that. But you don't want to do more than maybe one or two kind of going straight up-ish, and you do want to still add some curve to them.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a lot of information.
Yeah, no, it'll make more sense. So I'm going to start right here. I'm going to use the same brush. Now I'm using the skinny edge. And I'm just going to draw. It looks like the Grim Reaper's ready, coming over the hill, and he's got his doing one. Now these are always going to droop down. So
he's got his Grim Reaper thing. What's that called? A scythe?
Yeah.
His Grim Reaper thing.
His Grim Reaper reaping tool. Here I come a reaping. All right. And I'm just always starting at this top point. Now I'm just kind of doing the stems of these for right now. Oh, these kind of droop down.
So he hasn't added the fronds yet, so they look like really strange.
Yeah, we're just laying down the foundation. Now, the way we're going to do these fronds is we're going to take just a little bit of paint on the tip of our brush, and we're basically just going to touch the brush to the stem and just give it a little flick.
So it's like feathery.
Very, almost no pressure.
And not a lot of paint either.
Very little paint. Very little paint. You only have to do one side of these. You could do the whole frond without actually drawing the stem, just by going across.
And they can be fairly shaggy.
Yeah, the shaggier they are, the better.
Wind blown, and they're, they can take a little bit of abuse here and there. So yeah, I do like the shaggy, and you can make them shaggy with your littlest brush too. Mm-hmm. That actually might be easier for a lot of people to use this small brush, and that's what I did on those.
Well, we'll definitely do that when we get out on the smaller ones. I see that the original has metallic gold.
No, it's not metallic. It's
it's not?
No. Your Hawaiian Horizon one has it though.
Okay.
Next month's painting gets metallic gold. You guys will get a sparkly gold.
Sparkly shiny.
And then March I'm pretty excited about. We're doing a koi fish on wood, and then I think the other painting to go, it'll be one that they are designed to hang together, not like as one whole image, but like together in the same room. And so along with the koi fish, the one I have in my head, I can't make any promises because having it in my head and putting it on whatever I'm painting on and having it come out the way it looks in my head it's not always going to work that way. So, but I'm thinking of a cherry blossom with Mount Fuji, kind of Japanese themed. My koi is right over there, Paul. It's the top wood. You can grab it and show what's coming up. It has some metallic silver on it, which is pretty cool. So that's it's a wood birch 3/4 inch thick plank. Super cool. I've been loving painting on those and can't wait to teach you guys on that one.
Yeah, that's a really cool. And the downside to these is I noticed when we photograph them, it's really hard to really see the grain of the wood
and the thickness of the product.
Yeah, you can see it's about a 1/2 inch thick.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really neat about it is it 3/4? Yeah,
that's what
it
it
is.
Said anyway.
Yeah, that's about right. But it's hard to kind of see the grain, but it's the kind of thing when you see it in person, it's really nice looking.
Yeah, and birch doesn't really have a super aggressive grain anyway.
No, but it does have a little bit.
Yeah.
Birch is a wonderful wood for woodworking and things like that. Anyway, okay, so what we're going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and just kind of do a couple more palm trees. this is going to be one of those things where if you do, I'm just going to do 2 more on mine. Mm-hmm. I just kind of like the balance of that. If you want to do 4, by all means, do 4. You can always, the nice thing about the way this painting lays out is you can absolutely, if you get all done and you think, I really need to add 1 more, you can go back and add it at any time. So I'm going to do, this tree is about
3, 4,
3, close to 4 inches.
Yeah.
Next one I'm going to do, I'm going to do about 2/3 of the way out my point. And I'm going to do it maybe only about 2.5 inches tall. So I'm going to start right about here. You can do the trunk a little skinnier. If you want to use your smallest brush for this, you can.
If you want to add coconuts, you can.
Yep, coconuts are easy to add. Just use the same, you can use the back end of one of your brushes or something like that. Works good, just like we did our stars. Now I'm going to show you another technique for doing these palm fronds. And if you really like that first technique, that's perfect. Don't do it differently. But just because sometimes a technique doesn't necessarily work for a person the first time they try it, and another technique might work better. And basically what I'm going to do is, rather than drawing our, what do they call that? It's the center part of the frond. I don't remember what it's called, but the rib, I think is what they call it. I don't know.
I would not know that.
Yeah.
It's a Trivial Pursuit question.
Why am I asking you?
Right?
Anyway, what you can do is just kind of start doing your frond shapes, but you gotta have to, in your mind, know where that is going. So what I mean by that is you kind of have to...
Oh, I think you meant like the vein.
Is that what it's called?
Well, on leaves it is. It's a vein. But I don't think on palm trees it's got to have a more substantial name.
I don't know about that.
It probably is a rib.
If you know, feel free to tell us in the comment section.
Yeah, we've been playing board games with friends recently, and one of our friends just got the brand new Trivial Pursuit, and so any of these like little weird questions, it's important for us to know. I think we could win.
So you can see I kind of did the same. I did this like kind of... It's actually a quick way. This is a really fast way to paint these.
I would say the downside is it doesn't, for people who like to have a line to follow, it doesn't give you that. You're just creating it. Right.
And that's where I was saying you really have to have in your mind how it's going to shape out. And if this is your first time doing palm trees, probably the first technique is going to be better. But again, like if you're a little bit more free-flowing, then maybe just doing the fronds the way I did the second tree might be better. So... that's our second tree. I'm going to do just one more. I am going to switch brushes this time. And I'm going to use my smallest brush.
I'm going to see where you're going to place this one at.
It's going to be just a little smidge further. Like maybe an inch to the right of this one. And it's going to be... I'm going to kind of go right about here. And it's only going to come up to about here.
Going to overlap a little?
No, maybe. Maybe. Just like so.
I made mine leaning.
They do lean.
Yep.
And again, I'm using the smallest brush.
It was cool when we were in Maui last year. My daughter and her friend found an actual coconut on the beach in the green casing, and I don't know if it... I think Jill was gonna bring it back in her luggage, but we were like, well, you probably can't because it's like produce.
Plus, we saw that Brady Holiday Hawaii special.
That's
like,
right.
You don't want to bring things back from Hawaii that you find on the beach. It's like then you got to go back.
Yeah,
and give
that's
it back
kind of opening a door you don't want to open.
Pele intended no harm. So with this small one out in the distance, it's really just tiny little...
I think in the 80s I had a t-shirt that had this design on it.
Remember that keytar painting I did?
Yes.
It was like all Miami Vice. We were gonna run like
this is very Miami Vice.
We were gonna do an '80s night.
We still should do that. Although I don't know, maybe we did and it just didn't blow over.
No, we
go
never ran
over
it
the way we had hoped it would.
We never ran it.
Okay. Well,
So,
we're gonna have to do that.
I do feel like now that I've got the third palm tree in there, I do feel like I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna say I feel like it needs a fourth one, but I think once we put this other one on the other side, I might change my mind.
Okay.
So if you do want to do, like, again, sometimes it's like I feel like 3 is right, but then when I get done with 3, I feel like, okay, it's not quite enough. But I also know I got this one more bigger one going on this right-hand side that's really pretty bold. And it might, once I get done with it, I might then feel like the 3 on the left-hand side is enough. And I instinctively, I think that's going to be the case. But right now, if I were just to leave it right now, it needs something else. Well, we're going to do a little something else. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So the only difference is between these ones that we did. Now, I'm kind of arching them all towards the middle. It kind of helps pull the eye into the middle of the canvas on this painting. And that's something that we really need to, when we paint, we try to keep the viewer's eye on the canvas. We want them to keep looking at it and be more interested by it. So things that lean in kind of create a tunnel that pulls our eye into the middle. But I think the only thing that's different is instead of using the number 8 brush for this, we're actually just going to use the biggest brush.
Okay.
All right.
Do it.
Let's do it. So the biggest brush is actually...
You can use the number 8 brush if you want. I know I used it for the original.
Yeah. No, I think...
Let's show them this palm tree real quick.
Yep.
It's quite a bit larger because it's in the foreground, and that's going to give that perspective.
Mm-hmm. And that's just, like, it really is kind of curving out, hanging out over the painting, and like I said, I'm going to use the bigger brush because I personally, that's the way I usually do palm trees. I'm more comfortable with it that way. And next time you're going to go to Starbucks before we...
I know. Well, the dog woke me up at 5 and I couldn't get back to sleep.
He's being a pest. Where is he at?
He's sleeping.
All right. So I love that this tree, I don't have it on here. I should bring this back. I love that this tree goes all the way up to the point where it goes off the top of the canvas for us. So often when we paint, we try to keep everything framed in the canvas, and that to me is something you need to learn to get over, because that's what keeps it looking very beginnerish. Is that the right word? It's very entry level kind of thing to do, and so.
Jeez.
No, it is. Let's be honest. But if you can take just one element like this and have it go off the canvas, it just adds that extra little oomph of, hey, this person's got skill.
Well, no, it's not that. It's that it kind of makes you think in your mind that there's more to this picture. This picture keeps going. And which makes it look more like you're viewing it as a piece of scenery rather than as something that's completely encased in a rectangle.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You're right. Okay. So, I'm going to start. This one I'm actually, because of the way it lays out, a lot of times I like to start at the bottom and go up, but this particular one, because I want to really kind of control my landing zone, I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to start with the brush on edge. I'm going to turn my brush like this so you guys can see a little better. And as I work my way down, I can push harder and make a fatter, thicker trunk as I work my way down. Now, if you want to use a smaller brush to create that stem of the fronds, rib, vein, whatever it's called, yeah, by all means, I got no problem with that. I do like to stick with the number 8. I just like the way it traces better than the smallest brush. Let me just do one, and I'll show you how I do this with the smallest brush. There you go, Grim Reaper again. How I do this with the larger brush. So same thing, it's the same technique. I just, very small amount of paint, barely touch the brush to the canvas. Give it a little flick. Just I had a little too much paint on my brush on that first one that I did, but. I'm going to go ahead and just sketch on some more here. Just remember, we're making sure that these are all kind of starting in the same spot. Now this is a prime candidate to throw some coconuts in because it is bigger. And actually, I was right. Now that I've got this big one on the right hand side, I don't feel like I need to add another one on the left. I feel like it balanced it for me. Or I could do another one on the right. I'll do another one on the right and show you guys what I'm thinking here. While you guys are working on that, I'm just going to put one more in on here on the right, and it'll make sense.
I like that.
One of the things we try to avoid when we're painting something like this, especially when we've only got a few trees, is spacing them evenly. It's really easy to go through and do like almost like they're like fence posts or something like that. And so it's tucking a couple close together, having a big gap, a couple little bit different gap apart, really kind of helps balance things out. Yeah, I could have gone without adding that, but I do like to go ahead and just for the fun of it.
You know, the palm trees have like this big, massive.
That's right, they do.
It's like, I don't know what it is.
It's, you know what it is it's where what she's talking about is this. That actually looks really good. I like that. We've never done that on
I just used the littlest brush.
Well, what that is it's where the old fronds have broken off. And where the coconuts grow. Let's just add that, just a little blump, 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 blump. Make the sound effects and make it release more extra stress and tension. That actually makes a big difference.
Yeah. I felt like it looked a little too Varney.
For the younger members of the audience, Varney was a brand of sunglasses that was very popular, made very popular by like Tom Cruise in Risky Business and the dude in The Big Lebowski.
No, you're thinking of Ray-Ban.
That's what Varney's looked like too. Actually, Varney sold more T-shirts than they sold sunglasses.
And it's funny because it's a French word, but their logos, everything was very tropical.
You know, they're still around though. You know, mostly what they make now is ski goggles.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we're getting pretty close here.
Gonna do some water and some highlights on the trees and rocks, and then we'll be done.
Yeah. So when we do our water, one of the things I think is really important when we're doing water is to keep our brush moving side to side. So the brush is always going to be moving side to side, and then we'll use our, like we'll go like this, side to side, and we move our hand to guide where the brush is moving side to side at. And that's something that to me has become a really important part of teaching how to do water so it feels like water. And what's tricky with it is when we get in and around our rocks, we're going to instinctively going to want to try to follow these lines. Mm-hmm. And so we don't really want to do that. And in some ways, there is going to be a little bit, just because of the way it works.
We want the foam to, like, this is, you could stand over here and this is foamy water, like, hitting the rocks. But you want it to go through your shadow.
Yeah.
We're not, like, along the edge of the shadow. See how it kind of goes right through it.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you how we do that in a way that really gives us that horizontal plane feeling. And so we're going to start with white.
And your number 8 brush?
Yep, number 8 brush. I like to use the number 8. You could use the smallest, but I think the problem with using the smallest is it doesn't hold a lot of paint, and it makes you then want to control this a little bit more. So I'm going to start just basically off the point of this land mass. This is where my horizon was, and I'm just going to start very lightly.
And it might touch the sun. That's okay. The sun could be setting.
I got some dark paint on my brush from something. And that's actually one.
Palm trees.
Could be. Won't hurt anything. Doesn't matter. And when we're starting out at the back, you can use a tighter, little choppier.
You do have some gray.
Yeah.
You might want to clean that bad boy. We're in Hawaii, not Oregon.
It's just the shadow between the waves coming in. So when you get over close to this rock, I mean, it should be dry by now. Don't be afraid of brushing onto it a little bit. You can always come back and clean it up with black. What looks really weird is if you... A lot of times people, like, they leave, like, exactly a 1/4 inch gap all the way around. And it would be better to overlap a little bit than to leave a real distinctive edge showing. So, as I work my way down, still kind of coming through, scribbling through here. And when I get over to this left-hand side, I'm going to focus on this part real quick for you so you can see how I treat this side. I am going to kind of keeps going side to side, but I'm bringing the brush down as I go.
And through your shadow.
And through your shadow, and kind of let it come out a little bit here. But I'm still keeping that horizontal movement of the brush. This is really important to me because you can tell because I keep pointing it out.
And it takes a little thought because you are moving down, like your start point is higher here than it is here. Mm-hmm. So you've gone down, maybe 1.5 inches or so, but you're still moving side to side. So it's almost like you're thinking of it in terms of like stair stepping like this, only on a much flatter
scale. And the reason we do that is when you look across water, what you're seeing is horizontal planes, the top edges of ridges of water and things like that. We're not seeing vertical lines. The only time you're really going to see that, especially when we paint, is in a waterfall situation. We don't really have waterfalls. We have water lapping up onto the shore, and that's going to come up horizontally.
Unless you're in a king tide, then it's going to come up vertically.
Yeah. Don't go down by the water during a king tide.
Yeah.
All right, so we're just going to kind of keep working our way down, and I'm actually using pretty heavy amount of paint on the right-hand side where the shadows are. I want to leave a little bit of the shadow showing, but I also want to kind of get some good pop. Now, coming across to the right. Okay, so remember I talked about a little brush stroke here and there to kind of just bring it up another level? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a good example of where we can do that. Is right here, I kind of just did it on accident, but you can take that extra little bit up into there, and all of a sudden now it's created another little, like a little back eddy or a tide pool or something like that. Just by adding just an extra little bit of white cutting into your dark color. And then I think that looks is a cool way to add just a little detail that you don't really need to explain to people what it is. It's just there. I think sometimes my one complaint about a lot of abstract art is they take a lot of explanation sometimes. Or people want explanation. That's a better way of saying it. What does this mean? What is it supposed to be? And it's like, well, just look at it.
You know what Picasso used to do?
Yes, I do.
So this, I don't know, this has not been confirmed, but I have seen it online a lot. So, you just never know the stuff you read online. But I read that Picasso used to, like art shows and stuff, he'd carry around a gun with blanks in it. And when people would ask him what his abstract art meant, he would pull that gun out and frighten the person.
Yeah, I don't know. Seems like something an eccentric dude like him would do.
It's just kind of funny to think about. Like,
and then he'd probably charge people extra for being there because it was performance art. Yeah. Okay, so
probably ended up with a lot of wet pants.
Could be. So now we're going to do the same thing going across. Now, this is going to be a little bit, because I've kind of got couple of distinctive rocks coming down here, and we have to be kind of careful how we treat those, I think. Because what we have to do is we got to keep the brush kind of still moving this side to side. But what we have to be careful not to do is we need to fight that instinct to trace down. Mm-hmm. So tracing down is something that really messes with our eye when we start looking at water. Because then all of a sudden we feel like we're looking down on something from above instead of across.
Yeah, you just kind of have to break up your lines so you're not... Like, lift your brush a lot, because that's what would happen. The foamy edge of the ocean would break up. It's not going to be a perfect solid line. There's lots of little tiny bubbles, and then there won't be, in some spots.
Exactly. All right, so now what we've kind of got, we're almost done. We just have these like two leading waves, and I'm going to show you a little technique, Jenny, that I've been doing in the studio for the last couple of years with these waves that I really like, because a lot of times we've got what we're talking about is these two more distinctive waves that come across here. And if you look at them, they're really a pretty simple thing. It's just a white band of color with a little underline, which looks to me like a little bit of phthalo blue and red. Mm-hmm. A little purple. But there's something I like to do that gives it a little extra dimensional feel. Okay. It's super easy. Once I show you this, you'll never go back.
All right, show us. Okay.
And I feel confident since, this is my jam, yo. All right. So, what we're going to start off doing, and you might only do a couple inches at a time here, I'm going to start just down maybe about here on the left, and I want to come down just a little below my rock here, like maybe a 1/4 inch. It actually ends up being pretty close to flat across, so you can come down a little further. And I'm just going to take my number 8 and just kind of slather on a little bit of paint. Like
Make
this.
sure you wiggle it around so it's not like a perfectly straight line, because it is water rolling in.
Yeah. So then what I do is I wipe my brush off and get it nice and dry, and I just very lightly come back across and smudge out this top edge. And this is why you might only want to do a couple inches at a time.
Because it dries so fast.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just smudging side to side. And what it does is it gives the feeling that this is a top surface of a shelf of water coming in. So I'm just taking the existing wet paint, smudging it out. Again, I'm just working my brush side to side. The reason you might want to go just a couple inches at a time is because sometimes this paint will dry out before you get to it. So what it does is it takes that hard edge off the top, which you're going to see a hard edge on the bottom, but not necessarily quite so much on the top. And it really gives it this wonderful, like I said, layered feeling. Now, if you don't want to do that, it's totally fine to just do the line across really unevenly like I did before I did the smudging out. It's totally fine to do that too. And it's the kind of thing you can kind of come back and do it either way. You can come back and adjust it if you want. But I just really like to just add this extra little smudging out. It just makes it feel a little bit more organic.
More like a shelf of water.
Exactly. Now, we're going to go ahead and do one more little wave. Starting, I'm going to go about halfway between where this wave is. Now, if you're left-handed, you might feel more comfortable going this direction when you paint. I feel more comfortable going left to right. It's just kind of up to you what's more comfortable. But I'm going to start about halfway between the wave and the bottom of the canvas, and I'm going to come over to, again, about maybe just a smidge above the bottom corner of the canvas, maybe 1/4 inch or so.
I think the hardest part, like, is I had a difficult time like making my brain make each wave slightly different so they don't parallel each other, because they don't for real. They're kind of like their own independent thing.
So I'm only going to go part way across with my first because I was running into issues with the top edge drying out. So I'm going to do the same thing though. I'm going to do this little smudge. Now this is the kind of thing, like sometimes you could maybe even do this with, do it with your Bahama blue first, then do the white on top of it, and you kind of get like a really dimensional thing. But this painting, I think the nature of this painting, it would feel out of place. It would be a little bit too...
That's called Aloha blue.
Yeah, you're right. It would be just a little bit too much dimension for a painting that's really a graphical kind of painting more than a impressionist or realistic. Then there's nothing wrong with it being graphical. Graphical paintings are awesome. Who's that one guy that you showed me the video the other day? He's the one that inspired that painting.
William Hawkins.
Yeah, William Hawkins. His stuff is really cool in that it is very graphical.
But also very impressionistic.
Yeah, I mean, it's really neat. He really very much uses a graphical approach to how he does it. Now, so the other thing that I'm going to do next is, while these are here, it's really easy to kind of over smudge and get some of the lower parts smudged out as well. I'm just going to kind of come back and use my brush a little more on edge and just kind of pat.
Give it a sharper, like thicker edge?
Just a little thicker edge, yeah. And I'm just kind of bouncing the brush, not really drawing. If you bounce it, it gives it much more of that kind of foamy look. What I mean by bouncing is this tap, 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 tap really fast. And it just sharpens that leading edge up, and I just really think it adds a nice little, it adds a really, kind of advanced vibe to the wave without really
doing much,
being super advanced of a technique. And it's one of those things that people will look at this painting and they'll go, wow, these waves are amazing. You know, that's the one thing that will really jump out at people, I think, once they have a chance to look at it all. But it's a nice little subtle technique, easy to do.
You know that painting I found a picture of the other day? The one that you did years ago in our old Selwood studio. And it was the one that I think we called it Keiko. It's a breaching whale.
Yeah, no, we called it breaching whale.
And I think you said it starts off, the whale looks like a cigar jumping out of the water.
Hey, look at that. Instant advertisement.
So I could never unsee it as a cigar.
what do we call that? Rule 307?
Yeah, don't ever say what it is.
Don't ever
say what you see.
Yeah, whatever you think you see, don't say it out loud, because as soon as you say it out loud, you won't be able to unsee it that way. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do our little highlights on our trees, which we've got some little...
I think it's just red and yellow. I know we need a little more yellow.
Yep, it is yellow and red. And we're just going to...
If you have metallic gold,
If you have metallic gold,
it would be excellent to use.
I love using metallic gold for this kind of technique because it really adds a nice... the nice thing about the metallic gold is from some angles you don't really see it, and then you walk by and the light hits it. And
fairly transparent unless you look at it in the right light.
Now, the traditional artist side of me, because if you know me, I'm very much a traditional landscape painter, I would say. The idea of using a metallic paint kind of was like, it's taboo.
It suddenly becomes mixed media.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I feel it, but I still use it. But it's at the same. There's actually some iridescent paint you can get too. That's kind of cool. Remember, I got some of that, and it's kind of haven't figured out exactly how to use it yet, but it's cool. Anyway, so we're gonna mix up just a little bit of red and yellow. I'm using my smallest brush right now. Probably should mix it with the number 8 brush. Probably a little bit more yellow than red. Kind of want to just go this
it's
nice,
kind of a peach color.
kind of peachy tone.
You could even add a tiny bit of white to it, but I'd be careful about that.
Yeah, the white has a tendency, like I said earlier, it desaturates the color a little too much, and then when you put it on the canvas, it just looks too white.
The other thing, you could use just plain like yellow and white mixed together, just a little. That way would work really good for the highlights too, because you've got that big swatch of yellow back there. So.
But I do think the only thing I would say against that is when you're doing that on black.
Yeah.
It becomes such a bold highlight.
And it'll turn kind of greenish.
Yeah. So really it's like we don't need to do much with our trees. But I'll start... This is actually kind of awkward to do. Maybe I'll do it now. I almost started to do it with my left hand, but you can kind of just stripe in
on the side that's facing
on
the sun.
Side that's facing the sun. Now, I think the thing that's hardest when we're doing a highlight like this is it's instinctively, as soon as we grab this little tiny brush, we want to draw precise little lines. And to me, you're gonna lose that vibe that this is a
rough
organic
surface.
Object. Yeah. So I have a tendency of, I'm going to do this with my other hand here, hold on, of just kind of very lightly just kind of sketching.
So you're kind of lifting your brush a lot.
Or the other thing you can do, which I do a lot, is I just kind of drag the brush and just wiggle it. That works out really well too. Where's our color? It's all over.
Right here.
A little bit on the fronds. You don't need to do a lot. You don't want to like over detail these, especially these further back ones.
Because we want them to be dark, and if you over highlight, you lose that, and suddenly they just sort of, they don't really blend into the background, but they just don't look right. There's something about them that won't look quite right.
Exactly. Well, you've removed the contrast.
Yeah.
In fact, this furthest out one, I'm not even going to do any on it because I don't want to lose that contrast to it. Now, the other thing is, like, it's you can use this brush. I like to use this brush a lot for this type of technique. You can use the number 8 brush, works as well. But I like to use the small brush and just kind of roll the side of it. Just to kind of brush in a little bit of highlight. So that looks really bold on the monitor. So if you get...
It does. Doesn't look like that in person.
No, but if you do too much...
But remember, they're seeing this one.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you're painting on top of black. So anything you do right here that you maybe don't love,
hate black.
Just black back over it, and you're good to go. And actually, all I did, this is a technique that I've used before. I just brushed a little bit of phthalo blue into that just to tone it down. And that's just a technique I use sometimes, is rather than using black to try to cover it, just take something to bring the tone down a bit so it's not so intense. And I'm looking at it, and it's funny because I'm looking at it in person, I'm going, it doesn't bother me. And then I look it up at our monitor, I'm like, ooh, that looks really bold.
You can't look up there.
No, and then I look at our little tablet there, and it looks fine. So I'm going to go ahead and do my other rocks. Now these ones, I think, boy, that is bold.
I am curious to know your technique on highlighting these, because every time I do these, I don't like the way they turn out. And maybe it is because they are too graphical looking.
Those?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll show you. There's a couple different ways to do it. That's too potent, but let me just black over that. No, I'm going to leave it. I actually like the way that looks with that color. I like to use this brush. You can use the number 8 brush. And the key to doing this is I like to, again, I'm just holding the brush really flat to the canvas and just using the side. And it's like I'm just kind of scraping the paint onto the canvas rather than thinking about doing brush strokes. You see how I'm using the side though? Mm-hmm. It almost works like our
mountain highlight thing.
Yeah, our mountain
palette
highlight.
Knife.
Our palette knife. You know, that would actually be if you have a palette knife, this would be a great
place to use it.
Yeah. Now mine's ending up being much bolder than the original, but I kind of dig it. Dig. I actually like that with the color being a little tiny bit bolder, even though it's kind of an accent. Yeah, but it kind of helps balance the sky. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now the other thing, next step we'll do.
It's lava.
Liquid hot magma. This tree with the boulder trunk. What you can do is you can touch your brush to the left-hand side, the side that's facing the sun, and just give it a little flick. So touch and flick, and it kind of creates those little
stripey things.
Yeah. Now, I think on this tree, since it's closer, it's really important to bring these highlights down a little bit so it looks like it's not just stuck on top of the rock. It's growing from a little bit further down. If you don't want to use that technique I was just using, if that doesn't feel comfortable to you, and that's fine if it doesn't. I mean, everybody's hands work different. We talked about that earlier. You can use number 8, and again, it's the same idea. Just touch and give it a little nudge to the right.
You know, on bigger trees, where you're doing this scraped on horizontal bark sort of look, mm-hmm. I've seen where people have used old credit cards.
Oh, it works really good. Yeah, or even like, again, palette knives. Mm-hmm. Work really good. We should do that sometime. You know, we can get those kind of plastic palette knives pretty cheap.
Yeah.
We should just like
ship them in the box.
Just 1 month do, and that we use that. And they're not the best palette knives in the world, but they'll work for learning, and that would be kind of thing to try something that you see Bob Ross do all the time, but it's not something that we can practically do in the studio. Mm-hmm. But it would be something that would be really cool. And then what I would recommend is if we do that and you try it and you enjoy the process, go out and get a good palette knife. And they're not expensive.
No, they're not.
The only thing I would say is it can be overwhelming when you go to the art aisle and look at palette knives and you're like, oh my gosh, there's like 30 different shapes and sizes. And
I think starting with just like a basic slate oval.
Or, yeah, like the spade shaped.
Yeah,
you're talking about?
Yeah, and it's
those
like
are good.
more oval on the edges.
But there's some that are offset and some that are just blade straight, and I think the offset ones are good.
You need to highlight your fronds, man.
Oh, Hans and Franz.
And you can highlight this big shrubby thing.
I was kind of thinking these might be a little too close to the... Alright, I don't want to do too much on that because it gets too busy.
There is one little thing that I think could easily be forgotten. It could be left off, but down here, when we get down in there, these little white dots they can be sparkles from water, but I was thinking more like they're shells that are picking up the
That's cool.
sunlight.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we just need to outline our waves and do those.
Yeah, well, before we do that, let's go ahead and give our brushes a good, quick little rinse. We really have only got, oh wow, it's 9:27 already.
We only have like 5 minutes left.
Yeah, we only got 5 minutes left. That last hour went really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the other thing that we've got on this finished painting is we've got some little bits of mist and some spray and stuff, and what we'll do, we'll go ahead and do a little bit of that. You don't want to necessarily do a ton of it. This actually reminds me of A-Bay on the Big Island, where there isn't big waves rolling and creating a lot. They're more of like subtle little, you can go out with your little kid and wade in this and not to worry about a big wave knocking them over. But you just take a little bit of white in your smallest brush, and you can kind of just, you can give it a little flick up.
And do some little dots.
And then do some little dots. I always think it's kind of fun to kind of put like a little trickle of water coming down off a rock if you want to. You don't have to. But it maybe feels like there's rock, something splashing up and running down. What I mean by a little trickle of water, it's just a fine little meandering little line.
Mini waterfall.
Yeah. But this is a nice way to kind of like really develop and define that there's a rock coming up right here, because there's a little bit of water just kind of slamming up behind it, and it really curves and bounces and recoils off.
Would it do that right here?
Sure, why not? It's my world.
No, I was thinking of like when I designed it. Well, no.
Sure, yeah, it would. Yeah, but it's not like it's a big crashing, gonna wipe somebody off the beach.
Ugh. We won't even go there.
What?
That's what happened.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about that. There's just a little bit of detail, and you can even do some of these bigger spots over on this left-hand side. You can do a little tiny bit.
I think it's easy to overdo it.
It is really easy to overdo it.
And I'm going to stop.
I'm going to stop too. I wanted to add that one little spot where it really cut in on top. Just a little bit right there would be nice. Okay, last step basically before we sign it is we're going to put in our little shadows that really define these last little waves. And before they do that, I'm going to go ahead and reset our camera real quick so we can turn it back on and say goodbye to people in a minute.
Okay, I can get them mixing the color.
So what we're going to mix together is a little bit of purple, a little bit of red.
You mean a little blue and a little red to make a little purple?
Yes, I'm getting tired too.
And if it feels too dark, you could throw a little Bahama blue in there.
I think a little bit of Bahama would be good.
Or, no, Aloha.
Aloha blue. Oh. Thigh cramp. Okay.
That look about right?
Yeah, I think it'll be fine.
It's kind of a great bubble gum.
Great bubble gum. Hubba bubba.
Yeah. Hubba bubba.
All right. Smallest little brush. And what we're going to do is really we're just going to come in along this bottom edge. And because I'm very, like, personally very always thinking about this horizontal brush stroke, I have a tendency of really kind of scrubbing the paint in, moving the brush side to side and just wiggling it in to
And
other
then make
points.
sure you don't have a lot of paint on the tip of your brush, because you could end up with a really globby outline. And we really just need a kind of broken up, just here and there's a little shadow.
Yeah, you can leave little gaps, but I think it's really nice when you get over in these corners where it's a little, like, in the shadows, a little darker, to kind of be a little bit more aggressive with this. But this really adds a wonderful little detail. I just love how this works out. And the thing that's a little bit difficult with this is I've had a lot of students who, when they first do this kind of wave, they have a tendency of looking at it and saying it's just a white stripe with a purple stripe underneath it. Because we have a tendency of, especially when we're first learning, not being able to disassociate the process from what it looks like. Mm-hmm. And so we have a tendency of going, I know this is what I did to make this, and that's all I'm gonna, and we don't consciously think that's all I'm going to see, but that's what our brain does to us, is like, it knows what it did, and that's all it's going to see. And a lot of times I've had people where they're sitting right next to each other, they're painting, their waves look exactly the same, and one person will say, it's just two stripes, but my friend's looks just like a wave. But they look exactly the same, but it's just because the knowledge of how they created it is kind of clouding the way they look at it. And that goes away. That's something when you look at it the next day, or even just step back.
Put your painting away for a day.
Or even an hour.
You'll forget all these little steps.
We have a tendency of really focusing on the how instead of the result. And that's something that, again, when you step away from it, you'll come back and see it completely different. The other thing is as you paint more and more, you learn to trust yourself that it does look like what you think it looks like, or what you're intending it to look like, once you learn the techniques. But I think this kind of wave is something that anybody can do the first time they paint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a lot of haystack rock paintings in the studio that have this exact sort of thing going on, where the colors of the sky are what make up the colors on the ground too, both with the water and the sand.
Mm-hmm.
And the waves are also created this way with the little dark line underneath. I remember the first time I saw that was when you did it, and I was like, that's weird. And then I looked at it and I was like, that actually is the way to do it. It defines it. It adds that extra oomph. Suki's coming in to tell us we're done.
Yeah, this is our other dog. Two of the same breed. They're both crazy. So you can tell the difference when they walk in. You guys will hear their little toenails on the floor. Suki's a chunk, a chunk, a chunk, a chunk, and Hachi's a tip, 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 tippy tap. Suki's old. Hachi's not. Alright. Almost done with this shadowing. This is the kind of thing that, like, really you can hit pause and really take your time on this if you want. What do we got coming up next month, Jenny?
Next month is it's a double canvas painting. Mm-hmm. So we'll teach it in one session. It's basically
kind
two
of like
of
a
these.
Date night almost?
Yeah. So you can do it the whole thing on your own, or you can have a partner paint with you.
Well, that sounds fun.
And it's a tree with a couple birds. It's really adorable, actually. Cute. And then starting in March, we're gonna
start mixing it up.
We're going to mix it up and bring in some other projects that are beyond the canvas, because I've been doing a lot of exploration with that sort of thing, and I feel like it's time to share that with you guys.
Yeah.
And in the studio, we're limited to what we can teach because we don't have this ability to project, like what you guys can see, the projection up close of what we're doing. In the studio, that's a little harder to get. So it allows me to do more on the video than I can do at Wango.
All right, so that's about where I'm at right now. The last little thing is we got those little seashells.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to be like the way we did our stars. Just back into the brush. I would call these optional.
Yeah. I actually used the very tip of the bristles for mine because I wanted them to be maybe a little tinier.
Oh, now you tell me.
But, you could have some big shells.
Sand dollars. All right. Well,
Gotta sign it too.
The last thing to do is sign it. So let's pick a color. I think I'm going to do mine. I always kind of like to not do my signature quite so bold.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to kind of pick a color. I'm just going to go with our Aloha Blue. I'm going to do it right in this corner here. It's funny, both you and I kind of use a little logo, almost, version of our initials. So there it is. There's my completed one. We'll get Jenny's over here in a minute. I'm going to actually turn the picture back on. Here, we're back. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
We've been here all this time, but you haven't been able to see us.
We could teach this in our pajamas.
We do sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think, Jenny, yours is... just kind of... I'll slide mine out of the way completely here for a second. I think yours is a little bit more true to the original color of the original. Here's the original. You can see her colors are much more in keeping with the original, which makes sense. I mean,
since I painted
you
both.
painted the both, yeah. And I really like how yours turned out. You know what I really like is this little corner right here. You really nailed that look of rocks really reaching down into the water and coming up out of the water. And I think it's because your shadow's just a little bit more defined than mine is. And then you put a little bit more, I wouldn't say more attention, but more spots of the water kind of spraying up. I still got that little gray line on mine right there, but yeah, yours is, I like yours, Jenny. Your highlights are they're so different. Mm-hmm. It's the same painting.
Different yet the same.
I'm going to turn our little picture off real quick, and you can see it's like they're very similar but not the same. So anyway, let's go to here. It's us. We're back. So thanks for joining us tonight, you guys. Again, if this is your first time stumbling across our videos, make sure to like our videos. If you're interested in painting along with us, you can get the materials. We ship them the first week of each month for the video. So like first week of February, we'll ship out the boxes, which include the canvas and the paints. You can buy the brushes on our website, or you can pick up your own brushes at any art store. Then you can walk along or paint along with us, and we'll walk you through it. And obviously today, I think we really were kind of loosey-goosey today and being a little bit more silly than usual. I actually enjoyed it. That was fun.
So it's gobox.com, spelled G-O-G-H, box.com. And our videos are always on Monday nights. They're live, but you can definitely pause them, which is really nice, especially if you're trying to redo something or catch back up with what we were doing. Yep. And our next one, I need to pick the date, but they're usually, I want to allow everybody to get their box, and we do have some people out of state. So
usually the third and fourth week.
Yeah. Yep. But next month will be all in one day.
All in one day?
Because it's a double canvas.
Oh,
painting.
Right.
And then come March, those wood projects are going to be really fun. I'm going to really enjoy teaching you guys on something different than canvas.
Yep. And if you guys have any ideas about something you would like to see, I know a couple weeks ago somebody said something about seeing a koi painting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or I said like a couple sessions ago. But I think going into February, March, April, we're gonna start doing some more just little tutorials. And little tutorials will maybe be like I've got my Art of Seeing painting sessions where it's just a 10-15 minute little thing talking about little details that would be nice to be able to squeeze into these paintings, but we just don't. It's even still trying to get everything in and go on a 15 or 20 minute tangent specifically about fir
He can
trees.
talk a lot.
I don't think that was necessary, but okay. I'm a teacher. What can I say? But that's those types of videos. We'll be doing more how-tos on specific little details and things
we
like
end up
that.
having more time. Because our busy season is getting over, and we're now getting into the time when we can kind of recharge and think about new projects and things we want to teach.
Here, hold your painting up. Look at me. I did it. And you did it too. And you guys did too.
Yeah. So ask us any questions you might have. Leave any feedback. We'll always take suggestions for paintings. And we don't have like a nonstop flow of ideas. Sometimes we get painter's block. And thanks for joining.
Yep, check us out on Facebook. We've got the Facebook page for the business. We also have a Facebook group where everybody likes to get on there and share their finished paintings. I really enjoy seeing those when people share them.
Yeah.
Everybody does a wonderful job. I think it's really cool to see what people are doing. So anyway, we're going to call it a night. I think Jenny's ready to go to bed.
I don't know, you said something about pizza. I've been thinking about pizza for like the last 2 hours. So.
Do we need to go get pizza now? I don't know where
That's all right.
Yeah.
You said we had pizza left.
We do. It's Hayden's pizza.
Okay.
It's pepperoni.
We don't want that.
No.
It's Papa Murphy's.
Papa.
Oh, shh.
Papa Murphy's. If they want to send us a pizza for free and be like, hey, you guys are talking about us, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Sponsored.
Sponsor. I'll be wearing like a Papa Murphy's polo and hat and maybe some khakis and like eating pizza while we're teaching painting. It's like, my palette looks like a pepperoni pizza.
Okay, it's time to end.
We're having fun, and that's what it's all about. Good night, guys. Love you.
See you later. Thank you.